Why are you retiring right now?
Well, it's time. As you all know, I've been in policing for 46 years. Actually, I've been in policing for 48 years. I was a police cadet where I wasn't old enough to be a police officer for 2 of those years, but I've actually been a sworn police officer for 46 years in 5 police departments. I think we've made a lot of progress. I've had, during the course of my 46 years in all of those departments, I worked with some great people, some great citizens, great communities, and it's time to go home and kind of enjoy my family, my wife, my 3 kids, and my 3 grandchildren.
Got to ask all the questions here, but is this your decision or are you being pushed out?
It is absolutely, unequivocally, without a doubt, my decision. As a matter of fact, I would tell you, I had actually planned on leaving this past December, but decided that there was some unfinished business, and I kind of wanted to stay and bring that to conclusion.
What was the unfinished business you're talking about?
We have a use of force policy that we've been really pushing hard to get out, because we think it's the right thing to do for the community and for the citizens. We have data collection that we've been working on to help determine exactly what we're doing and what we're not doing right as it relates to stops that we make. And then, to be honest with you, there are some malicious allegations that have been made against me, and it was important to me at the time to see those come to some conclusion. And they came to the conclusion, they came to the right conclusion, because I did absolutely nothing wrong. But unfortunately, those allegations were given life as time went on, and they took way too long. But I'm happy to see that they have come to a conclusion, and they've completely exonerated me for something that I didn't do.
I assume the first thing we're talking about here is the Open Records Act request investigation.
Absolutely.
You're saying that those were malicious allegations?
Absolutely.
Unfounded?
Absolutely, as it relates to me. And I think it's important to also know that the executive board of the union played a significant role in these allegations. And I am of the opinion, of the strong opinion, that they came about as a result of their attempt to continue to resist the changes that have undertaken since I've been the chief of police. And there have been plenty of those changes, and all of those changes, I tell you, I think have been for the betterment of this community and the betterment of our police department. But the union has pretty much resisted most of those changes, by the way, and I think they saw this as an opportunity to continue to resist those changes in an effort to maybe have them stalled. But they haven't been stalled. Those changes have taken place, and there's probably a few more things, as I had mentioned, when the data collection and the use of force policy, that I want to see happen before I leave also.
But you wanted to get those 2 investigations done with, the auto accident one and the Cora one?
Yeah, you know, I owed it to, I would tell you there's very few things that are any more important than my family name, my reputation. So I owed it to my family to address those issues, to see them bring to some conclusion, and I owed it to the community also. I didn't want to leave with those hanging up in the air. I could have easily left in December, and those, while they were not concluded, and who knows, it probably would have went away because I would no longer be here. But I think I owed it to this community to have those come to some conclusion. I certainly owed it to myself and to my family also.
Just with respect to that Cora investigation, you were cleared. The mayor did kind of chastise you, though, in his decision, and he did kind of slap you on the hand, and I can't remember the exact wording. Do you think that was fair that the mayor chided you at the same time that he cleared you?
Well, I think the mayor thought that was the appropriate thing to do.
I'm asking you if you think that was fair.
And I'll let, you know, I honestly don't think I did any. Not honestly think. I know that I didn't do anything wrong. But you know, everybody has an opinion, and I did acknowledge that perhaps I could have handled some of those things differently and better, but the outcome would have been the same. And I think the mayor's probably of the opinion that I probably could have handled them a little better. I definitely could have handled the accident a little better. And I like to think that he's probably, when he talked about I could have been a little bit more professional, that's probably what he's referring to. I know that's what he's referring to, as a matter of fact, because you might recall the date of the accident, and I ought to tell people, I was a victim of an accident that became a suspect in the eyes of the union. But the reality of it is, as a result of that accident, I actually lost my memory that as a result of being hit by the individual who struck me. I had a hard time when the accident investigators came on the scene. It's a route I travel every single day, and they wanted me to go back to where the accident occurred. It took about 10 or 15 minutes for me to figure out the route that I had traveled. I had a memory loss, and I couldn't even remember the name of my one of my deputy chiefs who I deal with every single day. And then prior to going to the hospital, because I was kind of relatively close to my house, I wanted to go home and change my clothes. I didn't want to go to the hospital in gym clothes. So I had one of the deputy chiefs take me home, and I couldn't even remember the combination to my garage to get in. So I was somewhat disoriented. But that being said, the accident actually occurred. Not my accident occurred at 16th and Willow, but the accident where the person who struck me struck the other vehicle at 16th and Yosemite. Unbeknownst to me at the time, Yosemite is divided. That's 16th and Yosemite. One side is Aurora and one side is Denver. I was standing on the Aurora side, unbeknownst to me. So I'm seeing all these Aurora police officers come to the scene before the Denver police officers. So I'm wondering what the heck's going on. And I made a joke that I guess didn't turn out to be so funny in the eyes of some individuals when I was talking to the Aurora police officers. And as a result of that, I decided that it would probably, and I used profanity, because unfortunately I was brought up in a culture in my police career, predominantly in Washington, D.C., where profanity was unfortunately used by a lot of us, but that's no excuse. But anyway, as a result of that, and a result of what I thought was a lighthearted joke, I decided that it probably wasn't so funny to some of our co-workers. So I wrote a letter of apology to them. So I'm sure that's probably what the mayor was referring to, that perhaps I could have handled that better. But that had nothing to do with the fact that I did nothing wrong as it relates to the accident, and I was not pursuing the individual. I did state that I'm chasing the guy. I used the wrong terminology. But to be honest with you, I never saw the individual who struck me until I either heard or see him strike that other individual, the second victim, who was going in a completely different direction. I saw that in a completely different direction that he was traveling in.
The Aurora Police Department has body cam video of you after that accident,
yes,
making some spontaneous statements. Do you have any objection to them releasing that?
Well, it doesn't show me in the best of light, so I prefer that they didn't, but if they did, they did. I mean, I pretty much stated what happened then, so I don't think you're going to get anything other than hearing me say what I just told you and hearing me say what I've apologized to the men and women of the police department about.
You prefer they don't release it, though?
Sure. Who wants anything? Who would want something that released on them that would show them probably not in the best light? And again, be mindful that I was absolutely disoriented as a result of that accident.
You got bumped on the head or something?
No, I got struck on the driver's side of my vehicle by the other vehicle, and my shoulder, probably more so than anything else, was injured. But I did get a CAT scan and pretty much had a full operation and a drug test and all those other things. And fortunately, they all worked out. They all turned out to be relatively negative.
Okay. I want to make it give you the opportunity, but it sounds like you think that that investigation, particularly the Cora letter investigation, you think these investigations were really political witch hunts fueled by the police union?
I believe that with every fiber in my body.
Political hatchet jobs?
Yes, and pretty much predominantly a resistance to change and an effort to discontinue the change or to reverse the change. And one of the ways that you can reverse the change is replace the chief or discredit the chief. And as you well know, I've been here for 6.5 years plus, and I would tell you, walking into this agency, I've had confrontations with the union and others. When I say unions, I'm not talking about the good working, hard men and women in our department. I'm talking about the executive board of the union that consists of, I believe, 5 individuals.
You've dealt with unions all through your career.
Absolutely.
As a chief, how did the PPA, the Denver Police Union, compare to other unions?
You know, there will always be challenges, I think, with police chiefs and unions, especially when it's time to make changes and when you're dealing with discipline. So that's part of being a chief. But I think this union has taken it to a deeper level. This has probably been the most malicious union, executive board union that I've dealt with in 46 years. And I have dealt with, I've been a police chief or an executive chief in 5 departments. And 4 of those departments have had some type of union. And this one has probably been the most challenging.
Why do you think they were so bound and determined to try to get rid of you?
Because I think they are dead set on doing what they've always done. And I think they've just been adamantly opposed to most of the changes that we've made.
You were brought here as an agent of change, to that phrase, change the culture.
Yes.
As you leave here, do you think you have changed the culture of the Denver Police Department?
I think we have made tremendous progress in that direction. But I will also tell you what I'm hopeful, or let me change that. What I'm prayerful is that whoever replaces me build from the success that we've had and mitigate the mistakes that were made along the way.
And we were talking about that a moment ago before we started, about a successor for you. You believe it's going to be an internal candidate?
Well, I can only tell you what the mayor actually printed in his press release, and he stated that he is only entertaining current members of the department or retired members of the department. So with that being said, it sounds like it's going to be an internal candidate or a retired member of our department.
I suspect he's going to look to you and he's going to ask you, who would you like to be the next chief? Who do you think would be best for the city? Who do you think would be best for the city as the next chief?
Well, I think there are a handful of individuals that I think could do a very good job, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me to give you those names at this particular time, because I don't want to harm them and I don't want to actually give them an unfair advantage either.
How many candidates do you think, how many names would you be willing to give to the mayor and say these guys would work?
A handful.
How much is a handful?
I think I have 5 fingers, so it would be a considerable number.
Are there any internal candidates who you would say to the mayor, do not give that person the job?
Well, I'm going to kind of refrain from answering that, and I certainly will, if the mayor seeks my opinion, I'll certainly share my opinion with him for the pros and the cons.
You have some strong opinions about who should lead the department going forward?
Brian, I'm a guy who always have a strong opinion about most things that I think I know something about. So sure, I have a strong opinion about who the individuals I think he should take a serious look at, and an opinion about the individuals who probably wouldn't be the best fit at this particular time. But again, I'm going to have to reserve those comments for the mayor.
What are you going to do now?
You know what? That is a good question. I have done this since I've been 18 years old, out of high school, being a cadet, and I've always had a plan on what the next step of my life would be, even though it always doesn't work out that way. I honestly don't have a plan this time, and many people will say that's not a good thing. When you leave, you ought to have a plan. Well, I'll tell you, other than spending time with my family, I'm kind of open. I could teach. I have a great interest in being an umpire, believe it or not, in baseball.
An umpire in
An
baseball?
umpire. I'm not necessarily interested in doing anything else in law enforcement. After 46 years and working with thousands and thousands of individuals, that certainly is not my priority. And I kind of joke every once in a while, say if all else doesn't work, I'd always be a greeter at Walmart.
What would make you a good umpire in baseball?
I love sports. I love baseball. My youngest son, I've kind of coached him and would do an umpire at a very elementary level, intramural type level. And I just always had a great interest in baseball. So it's something I can think about if I'm not too old for it.
You've applied for other chiefs' jobs. You applied for the DC job. You didn't get it. Are you sitting here today telling me you're not going to be a police chief anywhere else ever again?
I have no desire or interest in being a police chief anywhere else again, ever.
Doesn't mean it won't happen. You just say you don't have any
Well,
desire right now.
you know, you're probably not surprised. You never know what tomorrow will bring you. But I will tell you, I am not looking and not even interested in having a conversation about being a police chief anyplace else. Someone called me. I get phone calls all the time, by the way, which I'm sure you're not surprised. People asking me to consider putting in for jobs, and even short of saying, this is your job if you want it. And I've expressed no interest in any of those.
I just don't see you sitting at home and.
No, I don't see me sitting at home either. And I've been married for 39 years, and I don't plan on sitting at home driving Miss Daisy, and Miss Daisy don't want to be driven. So while we're going to spend a great amount of time together and we get to visit our kids and do some traveling, you're right. At some point, there is something else that I will do. I just don't quite know exactly what it is now.
Will you stay in Denver?
Yeah, we plan on staying in Denver. My wife and I have fallen in love with this city, and my kids are all over the country, so there's no central location where they're located. So this will be a great place for us to stay.
As we wind down, I want to give you a chance to tick off your biggest accomplishment since you've been the Denver police chief.
You know, I've always said that my passion has been philosophically having policing across this country have us understanding that the greatest resource we have in an effort to do our job is connecting with the community. In the case of Denver, we have 700,000 eyes and ears. And I seriously believe that if we do a tremendous job in connecting with them, they will help us do our job, which our #1 job is prevention of crime. So as I look back at my time in Denver, I think that we have significantly increased our relationship with communities throughout this city. And I think in the long run, that is going to sustain us as we go about trying to become even more effective, more efficient, in providing safety for the citizens of this community.
Are the crime rates where you want them to be right now?
No, no.
Too high?
Too high, absolutely too high. And we've consistently been one of the safer major cities in America. And a major city is traditionally a city of about 500,000 or more residents, or 1,000 or more police officers, and there's some mitigators to that. But we've consistently been in that top tier of being one of those safer cities. But we're not where we need to be.
Crime is still too high.
Shootings. Crime is still too high. I mean, if you would ask me, one homicide is too many homicides. Mm-hmm. And we've had, we normally average 50 homicides a year or so, and for a city of 700,000, most police chief would say, man, that's pretty good. It's not good enough.
It's only fair when I give you the opportunity to list your greatest accomplishments. I want you to tell me what are your greatest regrets? What do you view as your greatest failures in your time here as a police chief?
My greatest regret is the loss of Selena Hollis. It was a young lady who actually moved from Detroit to come to Denver for a better life for her and her family. And she died in the line of duty. When that happened, and unfortunately, I've had the experience of working with probably more than a dozen police officers who died in the line of duty, but Selena was the last one. And that took a little piece of me. When she was lost, I also lost a part of myself. So that, I regret that by far greater than anything else. The other thing that I probably regret is, when I look in hindsight, I wish I had spent a little bit more time with the rank and file of this police department. You know, I had dedicated, one summer I had dedicated myself where I talked to probably over 500 police officers with just me and them, doing away with all the ranks. And as you know, there's a lot of ranks between chief and the officer in an effort to kind of try to better connect with them, to understand from their perspective what we could do as a police department to make their job easier and to ensure that they go home to their families at the end of the day. And in exchange for that, it gave me an opportunity to share with them from my perspective, and maybe even from the community's perspective, some of the things that they could do better to help us do our job better serving these citizens. So my regret is, I wish I had spent more time with the rank and file, with the sergeants, because those sergeants play a critical role. Everybody is supervised by a sergeant at some point in their career. And I will tell you, if you get those sergeants on board, philosophically, understanding what we're trying to do, and being supportive of this administration. It makes the job a lot easier for the officers, and it puts us in a much better position to get our arms around this community and using them as multipliers. So while I did some of that, I didn't do it enough.
The last couple of things I want to ask you is about your relationship with the press. Do you think you've taken unfair hits from the media in this town? And if so, can you talk about that for a second?
I know that I've taken unfair hits from the media at this town. You might recall, and my communication team will tell you, I am 100% for transparency. We call it like we see it. If we're right, we're right. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. We have nothing to hide. And I will tell you, there have been some times where allegations have been made against me, and we talked about those where they were 100% incorrect. You know, my biggest criticism, and your channel, and you're not part of that, is sometimes I think the media, instead of reporting the news, they want to make the news. And once they get in their mind that they have a story that they want, regardless of whatever facts come in front of them, they just very reluctant to change.
What else? What else you want to get off your chest? That's all I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I've taken up plenty of your time.
You know, and I appreciate you doing this, and I want to thank the citizens of this community, because I will tell you, for the most part, they have been extremely supportive of our police department, and they've been supportive of me. And I know that as I move on to whatever is next for me, their support for the men and women in this department will continue. So I certainly want to thank them, and I want to thank, you know, we have 1,500 men and women in this police department, and I certainly want to thank the men and women of this department, because despite the highs and the lows, I will tell you that they've come to work every single day, and for the most part, they have done a phenomenal job.
You know, I just want to, the last thing, I mean, and I told you when we started this, I've always heard that phrase. I mean, guys in your position always say, it's time, Brian, it's time. I know it's time, I can feel it's time. I just want to ask you, what does that mean, though? But does that mean I'm sick of the BS, I'm sick of the politics, I'm sick of the backstabbing? What does that mean to you? It's time.
You know what, Brian? That has something to do with it, but I got to tell you, what has sustained me beyond all of that is just this philosophical belief that I have what our responsibility is to communities across this country. As you had stated earlier, I've been in 5 departments, and I normally get hired to change the culture. I will tell you, I am not the most articulate individual or the most articulate chief, but I would argue with you or anyone else to tell you that I have more passion for what I believe our responsibility is to this community than most people that you will ever have the opportunity to interview in this position. And that has sustained me, and that is what wakes me up every morning to come to work, because I think each and every day we have a responsibility to get one step closer to this community, all for what we get paid to do, to prevent crime, to do a better job in preventing crime. So, yeah, the BS, the allegations, and I've talked to police chiefs, and I heard some of them say, oh man, I love my job. And I often scratch my head, and I go home to my wife, and I'm saying, what am I doing wrong? I got police chiefs of departments larger than ours and smaller than ours, not all of them, saying, I love my job. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not in love with being a police chief, but I am passionate about what I think our responsibility is. And that passion is what has woken me up for the last 20 years, because I've been a police chief for over 20 years, and has sustained me through all the BS and all the false allegations and all the fights that you have with unions, and the arguments that you might have, and the challenges that you might have in certain segments of the community that feel like they're not getting the services that they want. So that is what keeps me going. And that is, let me change that. That is what kept me going for the last 46 years, and 20 of those as a police chief in various departments.
I guess I'm still trying to figure out, are you sick of it? Or what? I just can't figure out this thing. No. It's time. No. You said, I've got more energy, I'm going to do something else, I'm not done.
But I'm done here. I've been here for 6.5 years. I've given it my all. My goal has been each and every day to do something that's gonna make us better, that's gonna make this community safer. And I can say, and I don't like using I, but in this case, I can say that I attempted to do that every single day. And I will also tell you, I know that there are citizens in this community that has a great appreciation for what occurred over the last 6.5 years, not because of Robert White, but because of this department and the progress that we've made and the connection that we have made. I've given it everything I had. You know those football coaches that will tell you, this is your last game, you're gonna graduate, this is the championship. Leave it all on the field. I left it all on the field.